Hello, hello, and welcome to Rome Howell, a podcast with inspiring talk and stories about exceptionally talented people. I'm Jennifer Gardner, your host.
I have a ping pong game happening in my head. Okay, so do you do art to sell it, or do you do art for your own work? And when I first started doing art from a young age, I was just doing it to express myself. It really made me happy. I was never going towards gallery. I don't know whether it wasn't in my realm of thinking or it was more personal for me.
Welcome to episode number 20 of the Rome Howell podcast. Over the last 19 episodes, various themes have emerged, and I can't help but mention them briefly here. Everybody that I've interviewed has had an extraordinary life, and they are all extremely happy, often doing unconventional work. Each of these people have all had one thing in common. They've all confronted fear in order to go for what excites them and what lights them up. And they're really happy with their lives. And that relates and is a good segue to today's episode, because today I'm sharing a very personal conversation that I recently had with a dear friend of mine, Linda Lancaster Carey. Linda has been battling breast cancer for the last 10 years. That she is still alive today is, as she puts it, a miracle. Every ounce of creativity that she has goes primarily into staying alive. I'll let you listen to her describe her life, and I think that this might put in perspective, and maybe some of you will find helpful, hearing her talk about how her illness has affected her creativity and her life. Before you listen to this interview, if you haven't already, I strongly suggest that you go back and listen to episode number 4 with Bob Carey, because he will explain so much about their story, about her diagnosis and how it led them to create the Tutu Project and the Carey Foundation, where they are both inspirational voices and advocates for people who suffer from breast cancer. Linda is the source of inspiration for that amazing effort, which is helping so many people. Linda and I go deep in this conversation. We talk not just about death, but also about vulnerability, creativity, supporting each other's creativity, and life. Like how when we are the most vulnerable, raw, open, and exposed, that's how we connect the most deeply with others and do our best work. Please say hello to Linda Lancaster Carey.
Hi, Jennifer.
How's it going?
It's going well. Beautiful
Good.
Day, and it's always nice to talk to you.
So I thought it would be a great idea to have you on the podcast because you have had a very interesting path. I mean, you're a super talented, multi-talented, creative person, and I think that your life has taken you in directions where you've had to use creativity and your resilience in ways that you probably didn't think you would have to 20 years ago.
You're right. Yes, I could never have imagined that life would go in this direction, but often that's the way it is.
I mean, I'll let you tell your story, but you've become a huge inspiration for a lot of people who have been dealing with cancer, specifically breast cancer, although I think your message and Bob Carey's message, speaks to anyone who may be struggling, and even people who aren't struggling who probably enjoy just looking at the pictures.
I think you're right. And I didn't realize this until, I would say, probably 6 or 8 months into this project that, people would email me and say, you know what, I don't have cancer, but I am really depressed, and your pictures mean so much to me. And I don't know, I guess we were just not short-sighted, but just targeted for the breast cancer community.
Right. Well, you and I have known each other for, oh my God, it's over 20 years now, which kind of scares me, the numbers. It's good and it's bad.
I know. It's like, how is that possible?
I know.
It's like being married for 29 years. I'm not even 29 years old yet. How is that possible?
Right. Well, I like your math. And I met your husband, Bob, at the Santa Fe photo workshops. I think it was in 1996. And he and I hit it off immediately. And then I met you soon after that. And we all became friends. And we've had this just wonderful, delicious friendship now for all those years. And you were kind enough back in the day to lend me your husband so that I could photograph him when I was shooting that crazy Happiness Primitives photo project in landscapes with mostly men wearing not a lot of clothing with animal heads and or masks, right?
It was a great project.
Right. See, and you have always had this amazing sense of humor, so I knew that you related, you got it. You got me, you got the project right away.
I did get it. I loved that project. It was so playful and shows so much vulnerability. I mean, there was many things going on there, and I appreciated it, and it was fun.
And I will always be grateful to you. There's this one image that I've sold many times. It's the one of Bob and the talent that we found. His name was Noah, who was, really heavy set person. And I took a picture of the two of them in the desert with the moon in the sky in the background, and they were throwing this ball that we bought at the dime store, and it's lion and bear throwing ball. And I've sold that image several times, and there's some pretty heavy duty collectors that have that image. That was the frontispiece of my show in LA, and I really owe that image to you in large part because you helped make it happen. Because I remember saying, I'm coming to Phoenix, we're going to work on this project, and I need animal heads, but not the bodies. Do you think I can get them? And you were like, no problem. Just come here. We'll take care of it. I'm like, I like it.
I'm good with unusual requests. I mean, seriously, when you think of the work my husband does, there's a lot of unusual conversations.
Oh, I know the work your husband does. And yes, I've watched him wrap himself in monofilament and attach all kinds of strange contraptions to his body, including the pink tutu. So, yeah. Now, you've been a huge part of his commercial work and then his personal work. And I guess I want to ask you how that's been for you as a creative person yourself, sort of sublimating, or I guess I'm assuming that you did, but I guess I'm asking you about how your own creative life intersects with that of Bob's.
Initially, where do I even start with that? Because I was producing, and this was never planned to work with Bob in photography, because I was producing, it became all about his artwork. And we were new in business, and I was learning that aspect. And so that piece of myself, that creativity, just sort of disappeared for a long while. And I was that person that found unique props or made whatever it was that he needed happen. It's just sort of what we walked into.
Right. But you were running his studio.
Right. I was running his studio. And so the piece for me that worked for me is because I was in a creative environment. So even though I wasn't doing my work, like if I was drawing or writing or something, I still had to problem solve creatively. Because clients would come with me and they'd say, okay, listen, we have this layout and here's your budget and this is what we need. And then it's really figuring out how to make that work and at the best possible way. Even down to wardrobe and props and all of that. And you do have to be creative with that. And just being part of these images, it really helped. And then also having conversations with really creative people, because in the ad industry, they're not just art directors or writers. Some of them are fine artists. And so I was able to enter a world that I didn't have access to at that point. So it's been an interesting journey. Just as far as when Bob was shooting film, he was probably one of the last guys that let go of that film camera. There was a lot of editing to be done, but not quite as much with digital, because with film, we would pretty much hand over all the film and let the client decide. But now with digital, there's a lot more editing involved because, everybody takes a gazillion pictures because you never know when you're going to get that right one. So that's been interesting. I feel like being part of the editing process, my eye has sharpened quite a bit, and I like that.
What is your own work?
Well, I studied graphic design, but once I got into working with Bob, I was working with other graphic designers, and it's not like I didn't like that field, but I really just studied it because I wanted to if someone said, well, you have to make money with your art. And my art really wasn't defined when I was that age. I said, okay, well, I'll study that. And I've always liked to draw, and I've always liked to write. When I was 12 years old, I wrote a book, and I would kill to have that book. I remember it was in an orange folder, those folders that have this two side pockets and then that piece in the middle you can put loose leaf paper in. And I had some obscure drawing on the front of it. And I don't know, in all the times that I've moved, somehow I misplaced it into the trash. And I started journaling. I remember my dad was a pharmacist, and he'd go to trade shows, and my dad loved to bring this stuff home. So I remember my first journal was in a date book, some pharmaceutical date book. And that was in fourth grade. So I always had that. And I really, because I studied graphic design, I mean, I had many, many other art classes, but I don't know, I was just traveling in between different mediums. But when I started working with Bob, I just stopped. My drafting table, sometimes I'd go in there in the evening and there'd be clothes piled up on it. And I just stopped spending much time in that office. Kind of sad, actually. And I take that on myself. I mean, I just didn't make time for myself. That's a big weakness of mine.
Do you have any regrets about that?
I do, because I think back, I'm getting back into it, because one aspect of the Tutu Project is using art for therapy. Okay, so here's what I have a ping pong game happening in my head. Okay, so do you do art to sell it, or do you do art for your own work? And when I first started doing art from a young age, I was just doing it to express myself. It really made me happy. And I never thought, I was never going towards gallery. I don't know, it just wasn't, I don't know whether it wasn't in my realm of thinking or it was more personal for me. So back to the Tutu Project, one of the aspects is art therapy. And the reason being is because as soon as I found out that I had cancer, I pulled out my sketchbook and I pulled out my journal. And they saved me from, I have one journal that's really hard to read. And actually, I never would have gone back to read it. But because of this project, I was trying to find, I don't know, subjects that I might be able to share with people. But there's a lot in that journal that I don't want to share. I just want to keep that to myself. So the whole aspect of art therapy is, how did I help heal myself? Right. And it was through drawing, and it wasn't work for gallery. It was just because I love pastels, and I would have a big piece of newsprint and I would just go crazy on it. And some of them were really dark. And I was okay with that because I'm not worried about the end result. It's just the process for me.
Right. So basically you think that this creative self-expression is healing for you.
Absolutely.
I think that whenever we bottle anything up, it's toxic.
I agree. And it generally comes up and out, even though you think you're bottling it up, it comes out in another way.
Can you give me an idea about what it means for you to be creative?
I have to be creative. It's part of my soul. I have this little game I play so I don't get used to, I don't let my life just go by me. Like for driving in the car, I'll give you that example. Even though if I take the same way every day, going to the store or into the city, whatever, I try to look past what I've always seen. So I'm always challenging my sight. And I take little pictures of that. And I don't know, that might not be making any sense, but I look beyond my seeing what's right there. And I've always done that. That's a little exercise I do. It's really important to me. That may not seem very creative, but it seems to keep my mind open in other ways for creative solutions, whether it's with Bob Carey Photography, whether it's a Tutu Project, or just expressing myself verbally. I feel like it just keeps that box open.
Well, how do you express yourself creatively? Aside from brainstorming and problem solving and producing the shoots for Bob commercially and sometimes for the Tutu Project, is there another way that you find that you're expressing yourself?
Well, the one thing that I've always loved to do is draw. And I have to say, shame on me that I haven't been doing any of that. When we first started Bob Carey Photography, it was crazy, really, really busy, just growing a new business. And I got out of my habit of going to my drawing table. And then when the Tutu Project started, it really took over our life. And we were working 14-hour days for months in a row, weekends, everything. And when I say shame on me, it's like, I know that's a vital piece of my self-expression, and I'm not doing it. I keep saying I'm going to take a life drawing class, and I haven't done it yet. I drive by a college and it's like, oh yeah, I should take a life drawing class, because that is when I'm at peace. I don't want to say most happy, but it's a very good Zen, get away from my life feeling.
Do you think that you participate creatively in Bob's work?
I do. And there's also a limit with that too, because I wouldn't ever want to shape his ideas. For example, we went on a 10-day road trip. It was probably 2008. Life dealt us some blows and we just wanted to get away. So we threw our dog in the car, some of Bob's equipment. And this project, or this particular drive, was just to do, we called them ballerina pictures at the time. And I was able to maybe say, okay, if I'm standing behind the camera, put your leg out this way, turn so the lights, shaping your body this way. But one thing that I never did is tell him where he should shoot, because that was his vision. And I just felt it was not up to me to cross over that. It's totally up to him. And that's still the way it is, whether it's like, for example, if he's doing a personal project of portraits in the studio, I do all the producing. And then when we get in there, I just step back. And I may once in a while remind him, you wanted to do these 3 things and I don't think you've done it. But then I step back again because it's not up to me. That's his vision. And I enjoy watching the process, but I step back.
Well, you're a huge part of the process and you're a huge source of the inspiration.
I think so. I mean, initially with the Tutu Project I was, but I don't think that I'm it anymore. And I hope that Bob's not taking pictures. One of the dangers is all of a sudden it becomes, it's a global brand now. And I don't want him to take pictures just for other people. I still think it's a great way for him to express himself, or self-therapy, all of that. Because our life is still crazy. I mean, I still have metastatic breast cancer and I'm still on chemo, and I will be on chemo until I say I don't want any more. And that's got to be hard, So, yeah, I think it's important.
I have to say, I mean, there's a lot out there in the media for anybody who wants to read about you and hear more about your diagnosis and your illness. But I have to say that I think that the single most important creative act that you're doing is staying healthy and having a life.
I agree. Because I was thinking about that with the questions that you sent. And it's like, what do I do right now? And, one of the questions perhaps was, what's my biggest achievement to date? And I say staying alive. I've been alive. I mean, the statistics, and I don't normally do statistics, but since this project started, I've pulled into the breast cancer community and on some levels more than I want. But with metastatic disease, you only live 2 to 3 years, and I'm 10 years out.
That is amazing. It is amazing.
It is amazing. And I have to tell you this. I wake up in the morning and I say thank you. And I go to bed at night and I say thank you. Because I truly believe that I'm fortunate, I'm blessed. I don't know if any of those words really fit, but I get it, that I'm a miracle. I mean, I don't know. I'm just really lucky. And then sometimes I think about that and I think, well, okay, if I'm so lucky, why do I get stressed out? And why do just daily things that happen in one's life, why does that bother me sometimes? And I think, well, that's kind of silly, because why wouldn't they? Just because I'm alive doesn't mean that there's not going to be distractions in my life.
Yeah, you're a human.
Right. But sometimes I remember at the very beginning, I was in chemo and I felt broken down because it was, it's eating everything up in my body. I had no hair. And I went to this lecture. It wasn't a lecture, it was a panel of 5 women who had gone through it. And this woman she said, cancer is the best thing that ever happened to me. And I looked at her and I'm thinking, what drugs are you on? How can it possibly be that? But there are some people think that they were able to change their life because of cancer. And I don't know, I'm not of that frame of mind. I guess I could probably have lived without it. I mean, I'm going to die of breast cancer. And unless, of course, like everybody says, you could get hit, by a bus, which I think is ridiculous. I mean, many, many people have said that. It's like, no. And part of it is because they don't want to hear that. And I don't blame them, but I have to say it sometimes, I can't keep everything in. I was just talking to a new friend. She has metastatic disease as well. And it was so wonderful. It was like 4 hours of conversation in the park on this beautiful sunny spring day. And so much that we shared. And it was like, wow, you have the same type of craziness I have. I'm not so crazy. Or maybe you just have my brand of craziness. So much of what she said is what I go through. And I asked myself, am I always supposed to be aware of how other people are feeling with what I say, because I get tired of protecting people. And I do educate and I do all of that. But sometimes I just want to scream. It's like, just listen to me, okay? I could get hit by that bus, but the chances are that I will die of breast cancer. I mean, that's what metastatic disease. I mean, when people die of breast cancer, it's metastatic. And I don't know if everybody understands that, but I don't know. I've got a lot of things running around inside of me, Jennifer. Some days I don't want to deal with cancer. I just want it to just say, I gotta have life here and I'm going to live it. And I think that's what has always helped me do as well as I have. I mean, the drugs are helping also, but I think I'm feisty and I'm a very strong woman. And I think that's helped also.
Well, for sure. I mean, you're incredibly strong. And I think that the fact that you go to sleep at night and wake up every morning and you're staying in gratitude each time, and you try to practice that as much throughout your days, it's so simple, but it's so important. And you're such an inspiration for so many people, how you've handled your disease and at the same time run Bob's studio, run the foundation, create the foundation with him, been the source of inspiration for the work that gave the content and the purpose for the foundation. I mean, let's not underestimate any of that.
Oh, just hearing that makes my mind spin out.
But that's really what it is.
It is. I think about sometimes it's like, why do I feel so overwhelmed? It's like, oh yeah, think about what you're trying to do.
Right.
The things that I'm trying to build, and I'm not always successful at them. I don't always get things done that I need to get done, but I try. I keep trying. I haven't stopped.
I mean, that's probably got a lot to do with why you're still here. You have this amazing purpose and you're helping other people by living your purpose.
I hope that helps people. I do. When we've looked at what the Tutu Project's all about, and it is obviously the imagery because they're very powerful and there's so many emotions. It's vulnerability, isolation, humor, all of that. And that really appeals to people with whatever they're going through. But then there is me as well. And we've tried to figure out where I fit. And I guess what I'm really trying to say is one day I was reading a Facebook feed and this woman said, I heard that his wife died. And I thought, oh boy, either she's not reading anything or I'm not speaking out.
Yeah, I think you need to become a little bit more vocal.
So I did. I looked around for different blogs that would write about me. And there was different pharmaceuticals that were interested in hearing my story, sharing it. AstraZeneca was in Times Square last year, and they had this really cool trailer. And, I gave them quotes and all that, and they came and videotaped Bob and I, but I didn't realize that when I walked up, my quote was life side on the side of the trailer. And It's like, wow.
What was it?
I don't remember what. I'd have to go back to find a picture of what it was.
Find a picture and send it to me, please.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
It was just something about probably being positive, and I don't know, it's probably answered how I live with metastatic disease, because that's what the whole trailer was about. I was not overwhelmed, but I was amazed that it was all focused on me, because I'm not that, I'm behind the scenes, and I'm okay with that. I haven't really needed attention unless I brought it on. And that's why it's worked with Bob and I. But now I feel a need. Well, like when I saw that trailer, I had a great sense of pride. It's like, wow, I am stepping out. I am sharing more about the real side of breast cancer, because, people see me and they say, gosh, you look really good. And that's a sentence that really drives me crazy. And I thank them because that is a very nice compliment. But that could be the pretty side of cancer. There's a real ugly side of cancer too. And I want to be more and more honest with people. And it's not just people in the cancer community, it's educating people that, well, I don't know, pretty much everybody has had some form of cancer in their life, but just educating that, I don't know whether it's to listen, the things not to say to people, all that, and be an inspiration.
All that and inspiration too.
It's a daily thing I try to figure out.
Not to make light of any of that, because I think it's a really important message. And actually, I was just thinking as I was listening to you about what you said about your journal and how you don't think you want to publish them. I think maybe that's exactly why you should publish them. Maybe you need to publish them. Maybe by showing more of yourself in that way, you'll help more people, inspire more people. I've been learning, this podcast, for example, I've never done anything like this. I've wanted to, but I never have. And, my first episodes are kind of cringeworthy, and I'm still finding my footing in doing this. But I've been told enough times along the way that you just have to put it out. You just have to be spontaneous and release it into the world, basically share it. And I've been really grateful for how much people are supporting me and telling me that I'm actually better than what I think I am and encouraging me to continue with this. First of all, it's really hard to strip away all the layers and get to the most authentic kernel of yourself. And I think it's a process. But then to share that and be comfortable with that, it's terrifying. But that's where I think the most moving, important work of anything is. And that's the work that can help inspire other people and touch other people and connect us to other people even more.
I agree. And it's something that I battle every day, particularly since this project started. And our business advisor, Marcella, she always tells me, well, Linda, you need to share, or you have to share more of yourself. And I don't always want to do that. Honey, I have shared things that I never thought would come out of my mouth, ever.
I'm sure.
I have shared all sorts of things. But there's a piece of me, and at first, let me say that I do agree with everything that you say, because I think that by sharing those raw moments, you are helping someone else. For instance, that conversation I had with this new friend of mine, we both shared pieces that I think it helped both of us saying, okay, you know what? We're not crazy. This is cancer. But there's some really raw things that I don't know. I don't know if I can do it. I think about it all the time. It's like, how much do I want to share? Do I want to share that? I remember when my surgeon called me and said she was sharing my pathology report. And I just remember curling up in my chair and putting my head down on the desk saying, am I going to die? And just saying that to you, I remember that pain. And she says, honey, I don't know. She says, only God knows that. And I was dying inside at that moment. And I don't think I've ever told anybody that, but I just remember, and Bob was out of town because when we first moved to New York, we didn't have work. So we had to go back to Phoenix, and I was staying with a lovely friend, but it wasn't the same as having Bob around or my family to have experienced that. And there was just such a sense of, well, fear for sure, because what does that mean? Am I going to die from breast cancer? I don't know. It was a very alone moment.
Well, thank you for sharing that here. That's so personal, and I know listeners will really appreciate that you shared that. I do.
Well, you're welcome. So I'm learning, I guess, I don't know, and maybe in the end I will share everything with people, but I keep going back to I'm a private person, and I really am. Some people think they really know me, but they know me as much as I want them to know me. And it's not like I actually think, well, I'm not going to share this, and this with that person. It's not. It's just who I am. It's just my makeup. I just hold some parts of myself in. And you know what? And maybe that goes back to creativity and art. I did an art therapy class once, and it was so amazing. There was a music element as well. And we would dance around the room. Sometimes there were certain steps we would take, or sometimes this is just free form. And then you'd come back. This is all guided with certain things from the instructor. You'd come back to your notepad and draw what you felt. And it helped without words. Some of the ugliness that's caught inside would just kind of spewed onto the paper, and it was so beautiful. And I think that I'm missing that. I think it's important to have that.
I can tell you that for me, if I'm not creating, I feel like I'm dying. If I'm not growing, if I'm not risking, I feel like I'm dying. I have to be in that space. I'm addicted to being productive, being creative, experiencing the fear that comes with that. And now I'm confronting the fear of sharing what it is that I create. And I think there's a huge opportunity for growth there in that space.
I think you're right. And I think it's something that I tuck behind, but I'm going to remember that, Jennifer, because I think that's really wise. When I hear that, that doesn't have anything to do with the whole private part of me. That's just, whether it's like this piece of artwork or, this great piece of artwork that someone would want to put in a gallery, I don't even think it's that way for me. It's just showing an emotion or whatever it is. And I go back to drawing. That's specifically what I'm talking about, is my drawing. And I walk away from this conversation as like, why wouldn't I share that with them? What am I hiding? And is it fear? I mean, I invite change into my life all the time. And I am afraid. For example, we were invited to speak to Cleveland Clinic, and there were 2,000 people there. I'm sitting on the side of the stage before they introduced me and thinking, why did I say yes? This is insane. I am not a public speaker. I can do in front of a camera. I'm okay with that. But 2,000 people, oh my God, I did it.
Yeah.
And I felt a great relief that I had accomplished that. I don't know if I ever want to do it again, but I learned a lot of things that I would do different. But I did it, you know?
Wow. Yeah. Kudos to you for doing it, despite being terrified to do it. It's really humbling. When I try cases before juries and I have to literally plead my client's case, it's the ultimate humbling thing to get up before total strangers and speak about something that's so meaningful and often, even in my cases, so personal. Really humbling. I mean, I feel exposed to the core, ripped wide open and exposed to a group of strangers. But I think that's the space you need to go. That's where you touch the most people. That's where you make the biggest difference. And that's where you grow the most yourself.
And that's interesting. I bet a lot of people don't even think that you would be experiencing that, because I don't know, because I never would have thought about that before. So thanks for sharing that with me. And it opens up a whole different world of being a lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
The whole personal side of that, and not just person in a suit and the briefcase. Although I don't see you as that type of lawyer anyway, but.
Because usually I'm not. Usually I'm in jeans and a T-shirt when I'm not in court. That's probably why.
And that's when I see you.
Yeah. But when I go to court, I look the part. I try anyway. I think I do. Anyway. But yes, I mean, that's how I practice. I mean, and that's how the best lawyers that I know practice. I mean, I find my story and my client's story, and then I find my client's story. But actually, I find their story first, and then I find my story and their story. So I'm very raw and exposed when I get up there. And, I took some acting classes. I'm still taking them, in fact, because I thought that would help me with public speaking and my jury cases. And I remember the first time I got up in front of the class and I shared something super personal about myself as part of an exercise we were doing. And John Ruskin said to me, "How do you feel right now?" When it was over, I said, "Oh my God, I'm shaking and I feel completely naked in front of this classroom." He says, "Good. That means that you did something. You did some work."
I applaud you for doing that. I really do.
Thank you. Come to class and watch me do something, and then you can really applaud. But
no, just the fact that you're doing it, not the end result, but just that fact that you're opening yourself up to that really raw space that's inside of all of us. I just find that amazing. I mean, even every time I talk to you, and it's not that we talk that much, but I feel this bond. It doesn't matter the frequency of us speaking, but our conversation last week, I walked away. It's like, I learned something from Jennifer every time I talk to you. And usually it's about myself. It's however you're being in your life. It's like, oh, that's such a great idea.
Well, there's nothing easy about it. And that's why I want to push you, give you a little nudge to look at your journal, look at your writings, and think about releasing them into the world. Because I bet that there's some amazing writing in there that would just add more beauty to the world.
Well, I'll think about that. And I you know what? All it is just that fear of that being really, really raw. It's like, 2 layers of your skin being peeled back, and that fear around that. And I have to say, I was very shy as a child, and I don't think anybody that knows me now would even contemplate that was, or even understand that was a piece of me. But I have pushed through it, and there are sometimes that I feel really shy, but I don't stop.
I'm going to shift the conversation right now and ask you a question. What excites you the most about the future?
I saw that question on the list, and I thought about it a lot. And I want to say just being able to live it And then the whole cancer side of me thinks, well, you may not be living it. But let's just say that I continue on this path. So the most thing that excites me about my future is being able to experience it.
Mm. Just the idea of being able to experience.
Just the idea of it. Yes, exactly. Yes, the idea of experiencing my life into my future.
When you have moments of self-doubt, what do you do? How do you deal with that?
Well, let's take the whole death thing.
The whole death thing.
The whole conversation around death, because it's there. I don't dwell on it much, but when I do have my moments of freaking out, I have this great tape I listen to. I got it when I did that art music therapy / class, and it's a beautiful artist, and it makes me cry, and it's okay because I get my tears out, and just the words in the songs are just really beautiful, and it feels like someone is holding me, and someone is, I don't know, I just feel really loved. So I read that and I cry and I allow myself to experience whatever I am. And that's one of the things I tell people, like with cancer or whatever, don't bottle that up because it's just going to come out in a really bad way, and be okay with whatever it is that you're feeling. I mean, maybe don't stay in it for hours, but be okay with it. So there's a lot of self-doubt. Let's say speaking engagements, not just the 2,000 people that I was speaking in. I say yes to all these things, and I never know what's going to happen. This is what's happened since I've diagnosed with metastatic disease. It's like, you know what? You have metastatic breast cancer. How much more terrifying than anything else in the world that you're going to experience?
Yes.
Where's the fear?
Right.
You know? So
Right.
get out there. And it comes to like people, like if I'm intimidated by some person, it's like, seriously, why would you let that get in the way of either experiencing whatever it is you're going to with this person? Why would you let that stop you? So that's sort of been my motto now. I mean, it's not anything many people can, or hopefully not many people can relate to with that, because I do not wish metastatic disease on anyone. But yeah, that's been my go-to. Bob and I were on a commercial, telecom. Deutsche Telekom hired us. They bought our life story for 6 months. And I had never been in front of a camera like that before. But I kept saying, it's like, you have metastatic disease. That's pretty much the most frightening thing that I'm going to have. So go and enjoy it. And I did. What a great experience it was.
Right.
It was, one art director said, Linda, you really need to rest. This is when we were in Germany filming it. And I looked at her, it's like, listen, when am I ever going to be in a commercial again?
Yeah.
I will sleep when I get home.
Yeah, right. Aw. That's wonderful.
It's been quite a journey.
It's
Not a journey, I don't, just quite life experiences. Journey implies so much when you have breast cancer, and it's just been lots of interesting experiences.
What do you like most about your life today?
Well, once again, I mean, this goes along with the cancer theme, is I'm alive. So beyond that I have access to amazing people and I have amazing experiences. Bob's spoken at 3 TED Talks. And because, one thing, I'm the one that organizes these. So part of the contract is the wife always goes.
Smart.
Well, after all, I am part of that story. And I think it's impactful to see the person, not just my wife, Linda, in words. So, I mean, there's a couple of reasons why I do that. But the conversations that I have with these minds that are, I mean, an astrophysicist, someone who has a jihad on her head, I mean, from ISIS. I mean, how am I ever going to run into people like this and have conversations with them?
Right.
Never.
Right.
So I love how open my life is to the world. I love that I get emails from Japan or from Germany or from Spain, and how it may seem like there's not a personal touch because I'm not speaking with these people, but I have a story created in my email box with these people, and I get to know them. And I love that. I mean, that's just magic to me.
Yeah, the technology and how it's letting us communicate with complete strangers globally is magic to me.
It is. I love it.
I love it. I totally love it. What advice would you give to people who are just starting out?
Starting out in life or with cancer?
In life.
Well, always listen to your heart, and listen to your heart as well as have some strategy like in your life, because I listen to my heart more than having any kind of strategy. And while that's worked, there's some things that didn't work in that. So listen to other people. Don't let go of your dreams. Don't let other people say, that's not going to work because of this, this, and this. It's not practical. Well, you know what? Who cares? You may have to change a dream up a little bit because generally you need a little practical in there, but don't listen. Because I think about that. I think about my niece. She's 18 years old, and I love her to death, and we're really, really close. And when we text, I think, what lessons can I share with her? And I don't want to be that older person whatever dreams she has, I don't want to be that person to say, you know what, you can't do that. It's not possible. Do it that way. I don't want to be that person. And as I am an inspiration to people with cancer, I want to just be an inspiration to others that follow your dream. Bob and I were 42-year-olds when we moved to New York City. We sold everything. It was one of the riskiest things that I've done. And it hasn't always worked out in these last 14 years. I mean, I had cancer and a multitude of other things, but I am so glad I did it. I love the person I've become. I mean, I still have the same sense of humor and all of that, but I just feel there's something that's beyond the person I was in Phoenix. And I love that.
I love that too. Is there any advice that you wish that someone had given you, looking back on your life?
Pretty much kind of what I just said is like, okay, have that dream. And, I would just move places and I wouldn't have anything set up and I wouldn't have any money. And there was so much more of a struggle. There was a lot of learning with that. And I'm not saying have safe dreams, totally not saying that, but just to really plan it out, think about it. I love being spontaneous, but there were some times that I wish I wasn't quite so spontaneous. I would have thought about it.
Well, Linda, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. And I think that, you're so amazing and time is everything. And I really appreciate how generous you've been and how supportive you are of me and of me doing this. And thanks for being on.
It was my pleasure, and I can only thank you because, like I said earlier, I learned so much from you, and I was really looking forward to this conversation because you're a wonderful woman.
Listeners, if you enjoyed this interview, I would really appreciate hearing from you. Can you please send me an email and let me know what exactly it is that you liked about the interview and what types of topics you would like me to speak about in the future? I really want to deliver content that you want to listen to, that addresses a concern or a need or a curiosity or a problem. And if you let me know what those are, then I will do my best to deliver. Feel free to email me at romehowell@gmail.com. I promise I will respond to every email. Thank you again for listening. That's it for this episode of Rome Howell. Rome Howell is produced in Los Angeles, California, with production support and editing services by Andrea Klunder and Edwin Ruiz at the Creative Imposter Studios in Chicago. I'm Jennifer Gardner. Feel free to leave me your comments and suggestions for stories you would like to hear, people you would like me to talk to, questions you would like me to ask. You will find me at Rome Howell on Facebook and at Jen B. Gardner on Twitter and at romehowell.com, where you can email me and sign up to hear the podcast every week. I really look forward to receiving your questions and your feedback and your requests. I'm grateful, and it's a lot of fun to be able to talk to you this way. So thanks again for listening, and take care.